Hey everybody, Jay Barrino here. Welcome back. I've got a Direct Strike replay for you. This game was just too good to not go back and cast. I just played this one in my spare time. That's why the camera angle's weird, because in the replay, it's not quite the same of a zoomed out angle as if you were in-game. That's neither here nor there. Anyway, I randomed into Artanis. I have a teammate who is Karax. I have a teammate who is Han and Horner. This teammate clearly has played much of Direct Strike. We are against... we have a Karax v Karax. I am against the Nova. And then the bottom right here is Tychus. So that's Han and Horner versus Tychus. Han and Horner usually not that great against Tychus. Anyway, there's something that makes this game very special, so I figured I really wanted to go back and cast it after the fact. Now, I really don't want to... I don't want to spoil what happens here. Just because I pick a game to cast does not mean I won it. I just want to preface that in advance. It's just that the game was really, really great. So anyway, as Artanis, I believe that I had moved out. I guess I should focus more on what's happening here. I don't think that I could tell who I was up against at first. So as Artanis, I built one Zealot to help try to capture the midsection. Don't think that was really worth it. In any case, it looks like I'm heading up to +3 straight away because I saw that I was against a Nova. As Artanis against Nova, I think typically you want to be making Phoenix. And if you're Karax, you want to be making Mirages. So I don't remember why I went straight to Tier 3. I really don't remember at all. So it's good that I put my worker outside of range of being scanned so that they didn't see that I was teching up, because I think they can see this little blue thing. I think. I'm not 100% sure about that. Anyway, the reason that you want to make anything that can kind of stun against Nova, so Nova's composition is always a lower number of units. So as such, if you can lift them with Phoenixes can lift 2 at a time. Mirages, also a great choice. Basically, if you can disable units, it's just going to be that much better against Nova because she has fewer units overall. So typically, Phoenix would be a great choice. It depends on what her composition is. It looks like she's making infantry. Anyway, you'll notice that our upper left player is AFK, so that's cool. He's Karax. This is also why we're not able to really get through the center. Also, I tech straight up to Tier 3 and started making some Tempests, and I have a Phoenix out as well. So I'm trying to go into this Phoenix Tempest composition. I figured because the person after my wave was also... Tychus, going Tempest wouldn't hurt in any case. I'm asking our teammate, hello, Orange, do you exist on this planet at this time? So again, and I know that I'm against Nova. I see some Marauders here. I have air units, so those Marauders aren't going to accomplish much, but at the same time, they can just run right across the center and retain that center income bonus. Orange suddenly reappears as, who am I against? While spending all of his money on Sentinels. Great choice. Great choice. You'll notice, though, that his opponent hasn't actually built anything yet, either. So I guess that kind of works for us. But very strange start. As you can see, this game is going in some strange directions already, and this isn't even the half of it. Han and Horner somehow doing okay against Tychus. Actually, like, this Mass Hellion Hellbat is really not a bad choice against Tychus. And as you can see, it's working. Hey, fun. So, we didn't know who he was against, because we didn't see. He didn't know who he was against, because he was AFK, yet he still proceeded to spend all of his money. Purple, noticing this discrepancy, pinging frantically, and then immediately leaving. So, yeah, thanks for doing that, buddy. Really appreciate it. A veteran of the game, thinking, oh no, we've been countered one wave, better leave immediately. Dude, you don't gotta do that. Anyway, it is now me and Orange who is heavily countered. He starts laying down some Mirages. But as you can see, the Mirages counter me pretty much directly at this point. And, we see Blue down here continuing to make Mirages. Nova now teching into some Goliaths. Luckily, this Nova, again, just sort of winging it, not really going for a designated strategy here. They have a clump of every single teammate, all 3 players in one wave here. Not good for me. And then we have Tychus here, who appears to be stacking up Blazes. Interesting choice considering they saw me going air, but at the same time, it wasn't a 2v3 from the get-go. And you know how 2v3s, you know, you have the waves that are kind of offset. Anyway, Orange here still... Nope, he's gone. Okay, I was going to say. Orange still hanging in there. Orange leaves. So it is now me, just me, Artanis, versus Blue Karax, Yellow Nova, Red Tychus. So the blue Mirages are starting to stack up here. Keep in mind, I have Phoenix. They are not Mirages, meaning they do not get that damage mitigation, but I do have Guardian Shell. My entire wave was immediately wiped out by the leftover Mirages, as my Planetary Fortress, that has been abdicated by Orange, now mine, is desperately trying to hang on against the Nova wave. I spawn again. And now I have Phoenix, rather, that can do nothing against Tychus. They can do nothing against Tychus. You'll notice now I have laid down some Archons. At this point, I'm panicking. I say, you know what? I'm probably going to lose this, but at the same time, I am not a coward like my two teammates. And just add insult to injury, the enemy Karax throws down Purifier Beam. Now let me explain to you why Archons are good against Karax in this circumstance. All these Mirages, the thing that they're good for is they have the phasing armor. If you can trigger the phasing armor with AoE, what that does is it removes the strong suit of the Phoenix as much as possible. Now I am already at tier 3, and I believe as such I don't have Plasma Surge, but I do have the ability to allow my Archons to start with full energy so that they can storm twice. I did not mean to hit that. How do I everyone, please. My fault. Now I do have some of these Tempests in the back. They have Disintegration. Now the problem is I'm not really countering Tychus very well. Even just one Vega here can pull all of my Tempests to the ground. Artanis does struggle in general versus Tychus. Tychus in general is a very strong commander in Direct Strike. So that right there, notice how I popped the phasing armor on every single Mirage. I comment, how am I still alive? That's a good question. Now, let me preface this. The reason that I'm still alive is their Nova just doesn't really know what they're doing. Please wrap this up. I have better things to do than sit. I'd like to start a new game of Direct Strike. That counts as a better thing to do than perpetually lose forever. At the same time, the longer the game goes, the more fun it is. Thankfully, those tanks actually despawned. So the issue is, I am one player with one composition, and I somehow have to try to counter 3 players. So when it's 3 versus 3, your main concern is countering your wave, and maybe a little bit of the wave before yours, and maybe a little bit of the wave after yours, depending on if you're losing or winning, respectively. Right. As Artanis, if you're against Tychus, I feel like really the only thing that can work is Tempests. So I kind of just have to go with the thing that will work the best against who can counter me the hardest. Because that's the only way I could possibly try to fight back against this. Now, my Archon, I guess I could try to manually cast here, but I need my Archons popping that phasing armor. The only reason that I make Archons is, again, I need to be able to... The only way I can counter these Mirages directly is by Archons, and popping as much of that phasing armor as possible to allow my Tempests to then kill them. I'm only at +1 attack. I do have 2 income things. Oh, I did it again. Just as things are heating up. I'm hitting 1 instinctively to go to my my builder. So Nova's Goliaths do have that anti-air stun. And because I'm sort of hemmed into going like pure Tempest Phoenix here, I feel like the Nova probably should have gone strictly Goliath. Like maybe even throwing some Marines in there, but just Goliaths. Only Goliaths. They stun my units. That would be really, really good, right? The Karax Colossi are really good, but considering that all my units are flying, they're going to prioritize these, which allow these Colossi to just casually walk by, and they're going to start hitting my Planetary Fortress, which can sort of defend itself, but that burn over time is really bad news. The one positive of Tempests is they do tend to stack up. They do tend to clump, which is really nice. There go those Goliaths just stunning me. Also, the Nova, when you're ahead, if you think that the game is going to end really soon, there's no point in getting more income. But at the same time, if you think the game could last any longer, you might as well. Might as well get those. Probably 3. I don't know if you should really ever get your 4th. Keep in mind, your 4th extractor, refinery, whatever, takes 12.5 minutes to pay for itself after you build it. So a game would have to go pretty long, like 30-plus minutes for a 4th income refinery to even remotely pay for itself. Anyway, as you can see, we're able to pop some of this phasing armor, even just with 1 Archon. That's very, very important. So I threw the Archon in there strictly to help counter Karax. And you don't need much. You can see this Nova has built some Marines and has sold all their Goliaths. Now, tech switching in Direct Strike is fun. I'm not going to tell anyone not to do it. It's fun to just kind of switch things up, but you do take a massive income loss. You lose like 30% of everything you spend, possibly more depending on the tier of unit that you're selling. So this Nova threw away the unit. Her Goliaths only cost 250 minerals, and they stunned my air units, and for some reason she sold them. Again, maybe new to the game, maybe just genuinely thought this was the right decision. It wasn't. I am somehow managing to slightly push this back. I've gotten another Archon. Very important you put Guardian Shell on those so that they can utilize their Storm at least once, if not twice, if you're lucky, if they can hang on long enough, and that's what the Guardian Shell allows them to do. Purifier Beam, roasting my Tempest, and allowing the enemy Karax to push back across the center. Keep in mind, they have had an extra income bonus this entire time. You gain 1 extra mineral per second per member of your team. So all 3 of them have gotten 1 extra mineral per second simply by holding the middle. That's pretty impactful. You know, one thing I actually don't know in terms of 2v3 and 1v3 balance is, like, if I took the middle, do I get a +3 middle holding bonus? No, that would be too good, right? But at the same time, isn't that inherently better for their team because they're getting way more resources? But the difference is, like, I spawn every single wave. I don't know. I don't know if that's even possible to really balance correctly. Anyway, so multiple flaws here on the enemy team have allowed me to somehow still survive, though you'd think at this point, as you can see, they're basically brute forcing their way to victory. I have Tempest, but they continue to make Blazes. Make some Kev Rattlesnake Wests. The Vega pulls them down, and the Kevs kill the Tempest because they're armored. And Kev Rattlesnake West would obliterate these things when compared to Blaze. Throwing some Blazes in there to stop the Tempest from shooting so fast is obviously great. Again, my Planetary still holding on there. The Planetaries get debuffed, I think, eventually over time if the game goes on too long, but it's still early enough that they're still at full power. It looks like the Nova is tech to Liberator saying, oh, he's going mass air. I should do some air splash. The Tempest attack air and ground with the same type of attack. You might as well go for the more cost-effective unit, which is the Goliath. That's only 250 minerals, and it stuns air units. And it would force me to make more Phoenix, which I really don't want to do. The Phoenix are here simply to absorb some of the initial shots from the enemy Phoenix and those Vega pulldowns. And I have some Guardian Shells on a few of those Phoenix as well. Again, they exist really to just kind of mess with the enemy AI as best as they can. So those Storms right there, massive. I have 3 Archons. I don't think I can afford to get any more, but I needed those to help counter these Mirages. Absolutely crucial. Again, it burns through that phasing armor on multiple Mirages at once, and then my Tempest can clean them up, because these Mirages only do bonus versus light, and the Tempests are pretty tanky. It all kind of works out. I've made it up to 3 attack, very necessary. Enemy Nova's at 1-0. Enemy Tychus 2-1. You don't really tend to see that many upgrades, like plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from Tychus until later in the game. Anyway, you just want to get units with Tychus and only get the bare minimum upgrades you need on each individual unit rather than getting a bunch of different upgrades. Again, if this Nova went Goliaths, if this Tychus went... or rather, even if this Nova could go Liberators but didn't sell those initial Goliaths, and if this Tychus had 2 Blazes and 3 Kevs, this would be a very different game right now. But it made for a fun game. As you can see, it's pretty back and forth. I'm still trying to push back towards the center. As you can see as Artanis, if you're against a Karax, Archons, very good. You might not think so, but as long as you have some stuff in the air to keep the Mirages in place and they start clumping up when they approach you, Storm just absolutely massacres. Psionic Storm absolutely massacres Mirages. But that's why, again, the Guardian Shell's important on the Archons. It's a very specific composition that works really well against a specific build of Karax. Karax doesn't have too much of a recourse in terms of anti-air. Could make Annihilators instead. Or just don't let the Artanis get to this point. But again, it's a 1v3, so the thing is, they all only have to counter one thing. They all only have to counter me. And they have 3 chances to do it. All 3 of them have a good chance to try to counter me. Anyway, I got leftover Tempests starting to chip away. The enemy Karax building some carriers. My Archons come in. They blow the phasing armor on the Mirages and let my Tempests start chipping away. The issue now is there are carriers now that are going to be healing the Mirages and doing damage to me while there's all these Mirages in front, tanking and allowing the carriers to survive. The healing drones remain and will start healing up Nova's forces as well. But it's relentless. Jaburino spawns again. The Tempests survive. They continue to push. It looks like we are now seeing some Goliaths again. So again, very rarely would I, unless you're Han and Horner. Han and Horner, one benefit of playing as Han and Horner is you can sell units and get a full refund up to a certain amount of units. And there's like a cooldown to it. Now, once again, all 3 of them have stacked up into one attack. So like I'm making a good effort, but then they just keep pushing me back. Specifically Tychus, but Tychus doesn't have the damage output, but is laying down a ton of damage suppression, basically pulling my Tempest down and then slowing them down. Big Dog says this is it, I think. Pure Fire Beam coming down, and it really this is basically it. Able to wipe out my forces right here. But the Mirages can't attack ground, so at the very least there is not that much DPS that can actually attack my fortress. Jaburino spawns again. The Storm goes down on the Mirages, blowing that phase armor, cleaning them up. Liberators alone by themselves, unable to get support from the Mirages or the Goliaths that are too far behind them for some reason. And just not enough Goliaths to fully stun everything. Another reason why I didn't sell my Phoenix. I could have sold those. I didn't sell them. I didn't even sell my Frontline Zealot. The Frontline Zealot probably eating some of the cooldowns from these blazes before the Tempests get pulled down. So, if you can think of any reason to not sell the units you put down, don't do it. If you want to win. Like, you could do it because it's fun. I'm not saying don't do that. Just because it's goofy and silly, I'm not, don't not do that. But, like, if you ever think, like, because in order to win, I need to sell stuff, unless you're Han and Horner, very rarely is that the right choice. I have 4 Archons now spreading storms across, blowing that phasing armor, allowing my Tempest to just plow through these Mirages. And I am just legit outright winning against this Karax. In a way, I think one-on-one I do beat every single one of these waves, but as they stack up, it's still horrifying. And there's just not enough Goliaths here to stun enough stuff. They stun the Phoenix, but that's fine. And then some of the Phoenix that do survive that have Guardian Shell are able to lift them up, such that they can't actually disable a large enough amount of my Tempest. Now these Blazes, again, they come in, they do a lot of damage. The damage mitigation on Blaze would be really scary, but I don't think he actually has that on any of them, and in fact, none of these Blazes have any upgrades. You typically want to at least get the high-capacity containers. Very rarely do you want to get the other stuff unless you're against a specific comp, like, keep hitting 1. I apologize. Like against Stukov or maybe Kerrigan. It depends. Zagara, it really just depends. But again, as Tychus, there's like a 45-minute video I made that's in the Direct Strike playlist. That's a long game where I play as Tychus and explain, I think, very clearly how to play Tychus effectively. So you can go and check that out. Anyway, this isn't the how to play Tychus game. I guess it's kind of the how not to play Tychus game. It's more of a watch Jaburino hold on for dear life. Now, the thing with Tempest is that they are still really large, and they have pretty big hitboxes, so even when they stop and they're clumped up, they tend to spread out pretty fast. So the Liberator anti-air is just not worth it, considering they are very expensive. In fact, we can see how much they cost, if I can find their worker. Librators are 525. You can get 2 Strike Goliaths for that cost. 2 Strike Goliaths for that cost. I have made it up to 333. I could go into detail to see like how much, you know, of what upgrades each individual Tychus unit has. I'm not going to do that. As you can see, though, the Mirage count is still pretty crazy. Here comes in my second group. We've got the Archons coming in. They're going to pop as much of the phasing armor that still remains. And if they don't, that's the other thing, too. If they don't have phasing armor, the Storm just plows through them. Because the Mirages are smaller, and they do clump up a lot more. Nova has once again decided to sell things and change to Banshees. I tell my opponent, hey Tychus, just make some rattlesnakes. Jesus fucking Christ. The reason I said that is I still don't feel like I can possibly win this game. And I say, Tychus, you can end this fast if you simply make some Cav Rattlesnake Wests, get them up to tier 3, and get that area of effect. Now, I wouldn't recommend going up to tier 3 as Tychus very quickly. It has been about 21 minutes, and the obvious answer is Vega plus Cav Rattlesnake West with the Super Stim Pack, whatever it's called, and the AoE would just plow through these Tempests very fast. You know, a couple blazes to stun. Anyway, my favorite part of this is just watching the Archons just come in and just plow through the Mirages. I love it. I love it. It's kind of hard to see because they're underneath, and then here comes another wave. My Tempest still surviving every wave. I continue to add Tempest, just cramming them in wherever they'll fit. And I now have 2 stacked up waves of Tempests. The Archons doing great work. The Banshees probably going to be able to get through in general, but not get to my actual planetary fortress because I do have waves behind everything that are able to kill them. We have crossed the center line. Jaberino has reclaimed the middle. And another wave of Jaberino spawned. I think I technically have 3 of my own waves stacked up here. Looks like Tychus just cleaned up what was left. If you're going to go this hard into Blazes, you probably want to go tier 3, and if you get the damage mitigation for Blaze, where all damage is reduced to a maximum amount, which I think is like 30 or 35, that would reduce the amount of the Tempest, where they're doing 75 damage, and it would basically decrease their damage by over half. That's huge. So again, there are many avenues that the enemy teams could have taken to stop me from reclaiming the mid. Even Purifier Beam, not enough. Stop the relentless onslaught of Tempests. This is not me saying that as Artanis, you should be making mass Tempests every game. But in a way, I think it depends on who you're up against. Sometimes you just need to do a Hail Mary. And again, this wouldn't work if I didn't have the Archons mixed in there to help against the Mirages. And even these few Phoenix that I had, they do, see right there, like those ate a bunch of the cooldowns of the Vegas, they ate a bunch of the cooldowns of the Blazes, because this enemy isn't not microing every unit of Tychuses, and frankly, once you get a certain amount of them there, it's very challenging to micro every single one, so you don't have to. Jaberino putting down his Total Wins trophy to intimidate them. And again, just watching the Storms go down and popping that phasing armor, and then watching the Tempest be able to plow through the Mirages. You'd think that this amount of Mirages is like, oh, it's pure anti-air. But it's really not against armored anti-air. It really depends on the circumstance. It's all about, you know, how cost-effective you can be with a Phoenix. So like a Tempest, I think, well, I guess we could look. A Tempest is 375. And a Mirage is 145. Right, so you can get like 2.5 Mirages-ish. And the onslaught continues. Can 2.5 Mirages kill 1 Tempest? It's hard to say, but if the Archons pop the phasing armor, definitely not. I have enough Tempests all set up and here together that I can actually nuke through Tychus's wave before he can actually get any support from his allies. And now the tables have turned. Will they change again? Annihilators being added to Karax's army. Probably pretty smart. The thing is, like, I really can't say what Karax could realistically do against this. You kind of have to do the Mirages, and probably a bigger emphasis on carriers. And fewer Mirages, because as the Mirages are getting countered, It's more about just having them there to protect your carriers. The Liberator's clumping up in order to try to do as much anti-air splash damage as possible. And as you can see, not as many Tempests are getting hit by that splash damage as you would hope. Even though you'd think air splash is the answer to this. Tempests are pretty tanky units. They're expensive, so they better be. I don't believe any of these... so he's leveling up his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5s, but he's not getting that XCMC 670. And if he were to tech up to tier 3, that could have made a really big difference here, because he would have been able to absorb a lot more damage from the Tempest. Now, sure, we still have Disintegrate, but the straight-up damage would still be absorbed by Blaze. That would have made a really big difference. I can't really say what Karax could have done different, but I can say Nova could have focused a lot more on Marine Goliath. Tychus could have focused on the damage reduction on Blaze and gotten a lot more Rattlesnake Wests for damage instead of Blaze. Get a few Blazes to debuff. And just like that, your boy wins a 1v3. It feels good, man. I say, well, GG with an exclamation point, when before that I actually told the enemy Tychus what they needed to do to win. They ignored me. This is not me trying to punch down and say, like, haha, these people. I mean, he built a hollow decoy, so that's kind of funny. But at the same time, it is funny, because I had no right winning this game. Yes, the Direct Strike is pretty well balanced for 1v3 and 2v3 in the sense that the waves just get so messed up that, especially in 2v3, nobody can really directly counter anybody else because you're against a different wave every time. But in a 1v3, I am at a distinct disadvantage, not because of money. I'm getting the same money. I'm given the same money privileges. My wave spawns 3 times as fast to accommodate. The difference is there are 3 of them, which gives them 3 different opportunities, 3 distinct opportunities to counter me in 3 different ways. So if one of them builds one thing that forces me to counter them, that leaves the other 2 open to hit me with something that my existing composition can't handle. And they were unable to do that. Again, I think there are a couple different answers. It's hard to say. I think the thing that even though I can just straight up beat Karax, I can't necessarily beat him any other way. The only way that I can beat Karax is with some Archons and then just tons of Tempests. I think that's really all I had against. Whereas, the difference is if any of the other players did anything else that would have directly countered the fact that I was going Mass Tempest, I would have been screwed. And the Tychus specifically has the opportunity to do that. Now, the Tychus did have the right idea in the sense that he built a lot of Tychus units, which again, you should go and just watch my How to Play Tychus video, because it's all explained there. Quantity over quality in Tychus's case, at least for the beginning part of the game, and then figure out where to go from there. And somewhere in that transition, things sort of got lost. Anyway, it was a cool game. I really wanted to go back. I figured, like, after I just didn't think I would win this. The fact that I did win at the end still came as a bit of a shock, even though I had started pushing back pretty effectively. And I thought, like, of course I'm going to cast this and share it. It was a cool game. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.